We're always taught that lying is bad, right? But the Constitution doesn't agree. Sometimes lies are protected, especially in a field I often litigate in, undercover journalism that uses deception and secret recording. Join me, a constitutional litigator, as we explore just how far this right to lie can be pushed under the First Amendment. Here's the twist. Not all lies are created equal. Some lies clearly cause harm. Think of committing fraud or lying under oath in court. These kinds of lies are crimes and they're not protected by free speech. But other lies can be harmless or even socially useful. For example, a white lie to spare someone's feelings isn't exactly a threat to society. And on a larger scale, sometimes lying can actually help reveal the truth. Let's get back to undercover journalism. Journalists and activists have long used deception as a tool to expose wrongdoing. If a reporter can't get the truth with an honest handshake, they might try a small lie to get insider access. In fact, legal scholars point out that investigative deceptions, lies used to secure truthful factual information about matters of public concern, deserve the utmost constitutional protection. I'm curious, what's your opinion? Where do you think the line should be for lying? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and we're going to jump into some of the case law and the doctrine. So what are some real examples? Plenty. Over a century ago, author Upton Sinclair posed as a worker in Chicago's meatpacking plants to investigate horrendous conditions, a ruse that led to his famous expose, The Jungle. His deception sparked public outrage and reforms in food safety. Undercover journalists since then have followed in Sinclair's footsteps, using lies about their identity to shine light on corruption or abuse that would otherwise stay hidden. Think of a reporter getting a job under an alias to film illegal dumping of toxic waste, or activists secretly recording inside a nursing home to document elder abuse. By pretending to be someone they're not, these individuals gather proof of misconduct that we would never have seen if they had been completely honest about being a reporter or activist. In these cases, the lies actually serve truth. They expose facts in the public's interest. Now you might be wondering, isn't lying just free speech? This is where the First Amendment comes in. The U.S. Supreme Court has actually tackled this question head on. The big case to know is United States versus Alvarez from 2012. In that case, a man named Xavier Alvarez lied about receiving the Medal of Honor, a top military award. He just made it up at a public meeting to look important. Lying about war medals was illegal under the Stolen Valor Act, and Alvarez was prosecuted for it. But the Supreme Court struck down that law and ruled that Alvarez's lie was protected speech. So wait, the First Amendment protects a lie about military honors? Yeah, in that case it did. The court said that lies are not automatically outside the First Amendment. There isn't a blanket exception that false statements have no free speech protection. Instead, the court drew a line. If a lie doesn't cause a specific, legally recognized harm, the government usually can't make it a crime. Justice Kennedy explained that a false claim like Alvarez's, however distasteful, caused no concrete harm to anyone or anything except perhaps his own reputation. It was just empty bragging. By contrast, the law only allows punishing lies that do cause real harm. For example, lying to steal someone's money is fraud, which causes financial harm. Lying about a person in a way that ruins their reputation, well, that's defamation, and that harms someone's good name. Those kinds of falsehoods inflict legally cognizable harm, so laws can forbid them. As the court saw it, you can't jail someone just for spouting off a lie that doesn't really hurt someone. The injury from a lie like that is too abstract, essentially just the disrespect of being lied to, which by itself wasn't enough to strip the lie of First Amendment protection. Importantly, the Supreme Court was also worried about the government abusing its power if it could broadly punish lies. If every false statement could be criminalized, that would give officials a dangerous weapon to crack down on speech they dislike. Think about it. Who decides what's a harmful lie? If politicians had the power to punish statements just for being false, they might target their critics under the pretense of lying. The court preferred the remedy of truthful counterspeech over legal punishment. Instead of jailing liars like Alvarez, the government can correct that with facts. This idea that some false speech must be tolerated isn't new. Decades earlier, in the landmark 1964 case New York Times v. Sullivan, the Supreme Court noted that erroneous statement is inevitable in free debate. In other words, people will make mistakes or say things that aren't 100% true, especially when talking about public issues or politics. And if we punished every inaccuracy, we'd scare people away from speaking at all. I'm sure you can think of some examples. Who's really pro-life? Who supports family values? To keep debate open and vigorous, the court in Sullivan set a high bar before media outlets or speakers can be sued for false statements about public officials in that case. This principle does connect to Alvarez. The law gives breathing room to falsehoods when punishing them would stifle the truth or public discourse. The Supreme Court has even protected intentional falsehoods in certain contexts like satire and parody. A famous example is Hustler magazine v. Falwell from 1988. Hustler published a parody interview pretending that a famous minister, Jerry Falwell, had a drunken, inappropriate encounter, a total fabrication meant as a joke. Falwell was offended and he sued, but the Supreme Court sided with the magazine. This underscores the theme. The First Amendment sometimes shields lies, not to encourage lying for its own sake, but to make sure we don't discourage creativity, debate, or uncovering of truth. Let's bring this concept into the real world of politics and activism. On the progressive side, consider animal rights activists who go undercover to expose cruelty in industrial farming. They might lie on a job application to get hired at a factory farm or a slaughterhouse, then secretly film abuses. These investigators have uncovered nightmarish scenes. For instance, sick cows being repeatedly shocked with electric prods, and young calves kicked and even skinned alive at a slaughterhouse. Videos like these led to public outrage and even large-scale meat recalls. Industry groups fought back by pushing so-called Ag-Gag laws. Ag-Gag laws make it a crime to gain access to agricultural facilities under false pretenses. In plain terms, to lie your way into a farm to conduct an undercover investigation. But remember Alvarez? You can't just outlaw lies across the board, especially if those lies cause no direct harm. And indeed, courts have struck down many Ag-Gag laws on First Amendment grounds. Federal courts have struck down many state Ag-Gag laws that criminalize lying to get into a farm, rightly finding that they violated free speech. The reasoning's pretty straightforward. Undercover reporting is a critical tool for informing the public of wrongdoing, and overbroad laws criminalizing false speech can't be allowed. In the absence of any concrete harm, punishing the lie of, "I'm just here for a job," does more harm to society than the lie itself. Now, switch to the conservative side of the spectrum, and you'll find similar undercover tactics. Ever heard of James O'Keefe or Project Veritas? I represent them both. O'Keefe is an undercover journalist famous for his secretly recorded videos. He and his team pose as people they're not, sometimes as would-be donors or clients, to infiltrate organizations and catch them on camera saying or doing something questionable. One early example that made national headline was O'Keefe's 2009 investigation of Acorn, a community organizing group. He and his colleagues posed as a pimp and prostitute and visited Acorn offices, secretly recording the staff's advice. The footage sparked a political firestorm, showing Acorn employees encouraging tax fraud and other misconduct. As a result, Acorn lost government funding and ultimately shut down. O'Keefe has targeted many groups, from unions to political consulting firms to politicians, using exactly these techniques to help reveal the truth. Love or hate the tactics, these examples show that lying can be a tool for what someone believes is a greater good. The animal rights activist lies to reveal animal cruelty. James O'Keefe lies to expose corruption or waste. And notably, both the left and right have at times defended these deceptive methods in the name of accountability. If one side's lies were outlawed, the other side's might be next. The First Amendment doesn't belong to any one ideology. It protects the undercover animal rights activists the same as it protects the right-wing videographer, so long as their lies aren't directly harming someone in a way that the law recognizes. In a democratic society, exposing wrongdoing, even if it involves deception, can ultimately help voters, consumers, and citizens make informed decisions. None of this is to say that lying is always noble or that these tactics are above criticism. Undercover operations can blur ethical lines and sometimes backfire. But the key point is our legal system generally gives the benefit of the doubt to speech, even tricky, deceptive speech. when the alternative is to suppress important information from coming out. So where do we end up on this? Lying in the eyes of the law is a mixed bag. There are lies that are legally and morally wrong, cheats, frauds, lies that hurt people in real, measurable ways, and those can be punished. But there are also lies that are relatively harmless or even beneficial for society, and those lies get a degree of protection under the First Amendment. We have to be very careful. One administration's harmful lie might be a dissident's inconvenient truth. Giving the government broad power to decide what's a punishable lie invites censorship. At the same time, protecting some lies doesn't mean anything goes or that lying is universally virtuous. Even the strongest defenders of free speech admit not all lies are alike, and in other areas of government regulation, these laws might serve legitimate interests. Perjury, impostoring officials, or lying in a way that directly victimizes people, those can be outlawed. Free speech isn't a blank check to defraud or defame with impunity. The challenge is to draw a sensible line. Punish the lies that truly cause harm while leaving breathing room for the rest of speech, including messy, uncomfortable falsehoods that we might hate, but that don't really hurt anyone. Boy, that's tough. It's a delicate balance, but it's one that protects all of us. In the end, the idea that lying is protected speech is really about protecting context, intent, and the free flow of ideas. A lie told to deceive and exploit is reprehensible, but a lie told to expose wrongdoing or power can enlighten the public. America, some of our biggest reforms have come out of undercover exposés, from showing the evils of asylums in the 1800s to awful conditions at meatpacking plants in the 1900s. Our laws, guided by the First Amendment, recognize this nuance. Criminalizing every lie would do more harm than good. It would chill free speech and block the very mechanisms that correct lies, like investigative journalism or open debate. So the next time you hear there ought to be a law against that, remember these principles. In a free society, we accept a few lies here and there, not because we celebrate lying, but because the alternative, a world where the government decides what's true under threat of criminal punishment, is a cure far worse than the disease. Thanks for coming along with me today in our discussion of the right to lie. My goal is to equip you with the tools to explore modern constitutional controversies in a calm, educational, interesting way. Be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps me with my efforts with this channel. And join us next week as we explore yet another constitutional controversy.